it's me, Corn. I'd like to share my relationship to this fic before reading, so if you'd like to get on with the chapter, please skip to the next part thingy. I'm not sure what it's called. So, I adore this fic with my entire being. Without getting into my age, I got into this fic when I was pretty young and new to fandoms. It was the most jaw-dropping, absolutely mesmerizing fic I read at the time. It still sits in my, top 3 fics ever. So, yes, I was amazed by it, and all of the fan content made up the fic and Kiribaku in general. The passion that Riot and so many others displayed changed my world. Prior to 2 a.m., I was not super into shipping, and fandom had already felt large, but post 2 a.m., it was ginormous. It was like going from a pond to an entire ocean. I found so much joy amongst other shippers, and I can't thank Riot enough for opening this world up to me. Fandom's already put stars into my eyes, but finding my niche in the shipping side of the fandom put galaxies into them. And, yes, this is really cheesy and very, well, I hope it's not too incoherent, but it's almost 6 a.m., so... Anyways, 2 a.m. is very important to me, so I hope that you all enjoy my reading of it. And, wait, one more thing. Instead of the AO3 page, I'm reading 2 a.m. from the book copy that I bought, so if you hear any page turning or textures you wouldn't hear from a phone screen, that's why. Alright, on to the content. 2 a.m. Knows All Secrets by Unbreakable-Red-Riot. Chapter 1. Things Go Bump in the Night. The first incident happened the Sunday Class 1A moved into their new dormitory. It had been a busy day of getting settled in and saying goodbye to family, and after their barbecue dinner, most everyone stayed up far too late chatting in the common room. The atmosphere was stuffy in the beginning, still tense from the whole Bakugo getting kidnapped ordeal. But Asui's tearful apology had been a much-needed sigh of relief, and finally, they could loosen up and turn their attention to more pressing matters. There were house rules to make, pet peeves to air out, not to mention a super exciting dorm room competition to wrap up. By the time Yao Yorozu pointed out the time, it was almost midnight. With Iida's final reminder of the next morning's training, everyone said their good nights and trickled away to the seclusion of their rooms. That had been earlier. Currently, it was something like 2 in the morning, and Eiichiro had been stuck for several hours just staring at his ceiling. His eyes had long adjusted to the dim moonlight creeping in through the window, but the unfamiliar shapes and shadows of his new room still made his brain buzz. Just one more thing keeping him up. He was a heavy sleeper, sure, but being a heavy sleeper didn't mean shit if he couldn't actually fall asleep in the first place. And ever since the training camp, sleep hadn't come the easiest. Yawning, Eiichiro curled in on himself, kicking at his blankets and scooting about, hoping to find a more comfortable position. Nothing felt right, though. It was awfully hot. But the late August air wasn't gonna be much better. Oh man, he should have brought his fan. And geez, the mattress sure was softer than the one back home. Too soft. How the hell was he supposed to sleep like this? Eiichiro groaned, because now his brain was cranking out thought after thought and it needed to stop. With a sigh, he flopped over onto his back and slung an arm over his eyes. Breathing exercises. Those would help, right? He breathed 8 counts in, then 8 counts out. Again. Then again, letting his mind clear, drift away, maybe even dream of something nice. Anything, please, God. There was a loud bang, followed by a yelp. Eiichiro bolted upright, gasping. In an instant, his arms braced in front of him, quirk activated and ready to defend. His heartbeat thundered in his eyes, and his eyes darted this way and that around his room, urgently searching for the source of the sound, because what the hell was that? None of the unfamiliar shapes moved. None of the shadows grabbed at him. Just an overreaction. He was fine. He wasn't in danger. Of course he wasn't. So calm down. He took a few deep breaths, using the nausea in his stomach and the wild beating of his heart. When his chest finally stopped heaving, he deactivated his quirk and lowered his hands to his lap, studying them for a moment, stunned. Seemed as though being the target of villain attack after villain attack had accumulated into some pretty unfortunate reflexes. He let out a shaky breath, rubbing his eyes and running his fingers roughly through his hair before plopping back onto the bed. While his pulse slowed, the gears in his head still spun away, processing what the hell had just happened. He turned to face the wall across his room, behind his desk. The sound had come from that direction, and just on the other side of that wall was Bakugo's room. Weird. Bakugo had gone to bed hours before everyone else. What was he doing up? Wait, that yelp was Bakugo? Eijiro let out a snort. He couldn't stop it. Bakugo was just so damn manly, so self-assured and spirited, and that yelp had been none of those things. It'd been unexpected, comical. What in the world could make someone like Bakugo yelp like that? Eijiro's eyebrows furrowed. The corners of his mouth fell into a frown. It couldn't be anything good, that was for sure. He sighed. Well, whatever it was, they were a bunch of loud, boisterous kids sleeping in the same building. There were bound to be some noise disturbances here and there. Eijiro just happened to be neighbors with the most explosive of the bunch. That was fine. If anything, the part of Eijiro that still felt the need to protect Bakugo found the room assignments to be a relief. But he didn't need to worry anymore. Bakugo had probably fallen out of bed or tripped over his weights on the way to take a piss or something. That had to be it. Eijiro reassured himself with a nod and an amused little hum. As long as whatever the hell that was didn't happen again, he wouldn't complain. It took several more minutes, his veins still burning with adrenaline, but finally, he fell asleep. The next day was just as hectic. With their summer break training back in full swing, an intense regime of testing quirk limits and brainstorming super moves in Gym Gamma to make up for the days they'd missed at the camp. When they were finally dismissed from training late in the evening, they still didn't rest. The novelty of living together hadn't worn off yet, so most of the class stayed up late in the common room again, chatting about this and that, or setting up gaming consoles, or working on that huge English review packet President Mike had assigned for them to finish before the end of summer break. The whole day left Eijiro drained and exhausted and just a little bit daunted. They still had 2 more weeks of this before regular classes picked back up again. UA really wasn't gonna let them catch a break. At least sleep overcame him as soon as his head hit the pillow that night. Before long, visions of heroic rescues and daring escapades danced in his head when, boom! A jolt awake, a long groan. What the hell? Eijiro grumbled as he reached out blindly for his phone. He winced at the bright screen. 2:13. Huffing, he tossed the phone back onto his nightstand and wrapped his blanket snugly around him. It was Bakugo again, no doubt about it. But what was he doing? Was that his quirk? Why the hell would he be activating his quirk? At 2 in the morning? Eijiro worried his lip. Something was wrong. Nope. Eijiro smothered his head with a pillow, blocking out the thought. Between Bakugo's kidnapping and Bakugo's rescue, Eijiro had done his fair share of worrying about the guy. Keeping it up would just be overkill at this point. Bakugo was safe and sound, just 1 door down, in one of the most secure facilities in the entire Tsubu region. The guy was probably just training, or trying out a super move, or otherwise being an insufferable little shit. Okay, hold up. That wasn't fair of him. Sure, Bakugo was an asshole sometimes, but not that big of an asshole. And they were friends, right? He sure hoped so. What with the USJ and the cavalry battle and the summer camp in Kamino. What sort of friend would he be if he didn't give his pals the benefit of the doubt? That day had been a weird one for Bakugo, though. Eijiro couldn't blame him too much, what with certain recent events and all. But damn, Bakugo had been downright cranky that day. Insufferably aggressive and reckless during training, shrugging off Kaminari's constant nagging, secluding himself in his room as soon as they returned to the dorms, not even joining the class for dinner. Okay, maybe something really was wrong. Great. His brain definitely wasn't gonna shut up now. Eijiro turned to his side, curling up and staring at the wall that separated his room and Bakugo's as if it would give him answers. It didn't. He sighed. He wasn't going to get any sleep until he got to the bottom of this, was he? Generally, Eijiro didn't think of himself as a total idiot, but the thought did occur as he slipped out of bed and padded quietly to the corridor. A confrontation at 2 in the morning was probably not the smartest idea, but nothing was stopping him, either. No prying eyes, no obstacles in his way. Even so, he hesitated for a moment, fist hovering above Bakugo's door. What the hell was he doing? With a breath, he gave it a soft tap. "Hey, Bakugo?" he called, then immediately winced. For a few seconds, time was frozen, and oh dear, he just made a bad mistake, hadn't he? He was tired. Bakugo was probably tired. They had training bright and early in the morning, yet here Eijiro was, knocking on Mr. Anger Management Issue's door in the middle of the night as if he needed to borrow a cup of sugar. Any other time, Eijiro could handle Bakugo perfectly well. He was kinda great at it, actually. But it was far too late for Bakugo's bullshit right now. The last thing Class 1A needed was a tired, pissed-off human bomb causing a scene at 2 in the morning. For a second, Eijiro considered, unrelatedly, where in the dorm would make the most effective bomb shelter. The stairwell, probably. Followed by a few more seconds of his inner voice chastising him for being so unmanly. What was he, a coward? But his thoughts were soon interrupted by the sound of approaching footsteps. Very heavy, very angry footsteps. Oh dear. He straightened his posture and braced himself for impact. The door creaked open a few centimeters, revealing a pair of deep, red eyes. They stared at him blankly. "The hell do you want?" came a bitey mumble. Eijiro blinked. That hadn't been so bad. "I heard something coming from your room and wanted to make sure you're okay." That earned him a scowl. Bakugo set his jaw and looked to the side. "I'm fine." "You sure, man? If something's wrong, I'm here." "I said I'm fucking fine, alright?" Small explosions like firecrackers danced around the fists balled up by his side. Bakugo jolted at the sound, just a bit, like he'd startled himself. "Okay." Eijiro blinked again, unfazed. A few explosions here and there were nothing new. The averted eyes and the red-tipped ears, however, definitely were. What did Bakugo have to be embarrassed about? "Are you gonna let me sleep?" Bakugo asked. "Or are you just gonna keep standing there like a goddamn idiot?" "Oh, right." Eijiro tore his eyes away and scratched the nape of his neck. He kicked at the floor a bit. "Sorry for bothering you," he finished lamely. Bakugo squinted. "Yeah. Anyway, good night." Bakugo id, mumbling a half-assed "good night," before shutting the door firmly in Eijiro's face. Well, that hadn't gone as bad as he expected, Eijiro thought as he plopped back onto his bed and shimmied under the covers. He'd expected more explosions, for one, more cursing at the very least, but instead, Bakugo had kept both of those to a minimum, like he was trying to make as little of a scene as possible, which was very much not Bakugo's style, and that just made Eijiro curious all over again. Well, whatever the reason, hopefully it wouldn't have become a habit or anything. Hopefully. It wasn't that he was annoyed. Okay, maybe he was a bit annoyed, but that was just the lack of sleep talking, because a certain explosive punk thought it was a good idea to test the flammability of his sheets at 2 in the morning. Every single morning. But really, Eijiro reminded himself a few nights later, after waking up from the 5th round of explosions that week, he wasn't annoyed. He was concerned more than anything. Bakugo was his friend, his bro, and if something bothered his bro, it bothered him, too. Eijiro sighed. He was losing serious sleep over this whole ordeal. Ignoring the red sirens blaring in his head, he slipped back into the hallway. When he found himself in front of Bakugo's door again, he raised his fist to knock. Then he lowered it, raised it, let it hover for a bit, let it drop to his side. With a frustrated groan, he teetered from one foot to the other, running his fingers through his hair and down his face. He was too tired for this. His brain had been filled with fog all through training, and his eyes hadn't stopped stinging for days, and he was too freaking tired for this. But he was already here. He'd already made it this far. No use hesitating now, damn it! Clenching his jaw and steeling his nerves, finally, he knocked. "Hey, Bakugo?" This time, there was no wait, No beat of silence, just an immediate growl, followed by a few quick footsteps and the door bursting open. Eijiro's eyes widened as Bakugo stomped into view, his brows scrunched over very red, very mean eyes. This time, he looked pissed. The fuck could you possibly want now? Eijiro let his face fall into a comfortable smirk. 4 nights in a row. Should I be concerned? No. Bakugo crossed his arms. Leave. I'm trying to sleep. And failing, by the sound of it. You're one to talk, keeping me up. Hey. Eijiro held his hands up in defense. Last I checked, I don't make explosions. That's all on you, buddy. With a groan, Bakugo lulled his head back. Fuck off, he spat. Fine, fine. Eijiro threw his hands up into the air. Whatever. But the second this happens again, I'll be back. No, the fuck you won't be. Eijiro raised his brow. Promise? Whatever, Bakugo said. Then he yawned. He actually, honest to God, yawned, rubbing his eyes and smacking his lips when it was over, like he just couldn't help himself. When he was done, his arms crossed his chest again. Okay. Whatever was possessing Bakugo's body needed to learn how to stay in character. Or, on a more serious note, something was definitely wrong. Eijiro mirrored Bakugo and crossed his arms, too, then leaned his hip against the doorframe. Maybe it'd make him look relaxed, approachable. So, he said, completely ignoring the fact that whatever the hell you're doing is keeping me up on a nightly basis. His voice lowered. You know you can come to me if something's bothering you, right? I'll listen, I swear. Bakugo's face fell into a deadpan. Good night, he said. Then he slammed the door. As a resulting gust of air washed over his face, Eijiro made up his mind. If this happened again, he needed a plan. And that's the end of chapter 1. I hope you all had fun listening to me. I sure had fun reading it. Also, I would appreciate hearing your thoughts on the fic, my voice, any encouragement, or constructive criticism. I'm still a newbie in Podfics, so I want to know how I can make your experience better. I also just want to interact with y'all to the best of my abilities. Okay, and a small disclaimer before I sign off. I don't know how often I'll be able to upload these, or even if I'll be able to finish the entire fic, so please be patient with me. The goal is definitely to read all of the chapters, and maybe read the comic at the end of the fic. Whether I will show the comic or only have audio depends on me finishing the chapters and Riot giving permission to share it, so no promises. I will do my best, though. That's all I have to say, so see y'all next time. I hope everyone has a quarantastic day.